Welcome back to Columbus Brick by Brick, the podcast where we uncover the people, projects, and ideas shaping the future of Columbus, Ohio. I'm your host, Jon Styer, broker and owner of Styer Real Estate Professionals, a boutique, production-focused brokerage that values agent growth and helps them build a business with real impact. Each week, we sit down with the entrepreneurs, visionaries, and community leaders who are building something meaningful in this city, brick by brick. Today, we're joined by Jim Perry, an AI prompt engineering and data mining lecturer at The Ohio State University's Fisher College of Business and realtor right here at Styer Real Estate Professionals. In our conversation, we'll explore how AI is transforming the real estate industry right here in Columbus. From smarter property valuations to personalized client experience, Jim shares the foundational principles he teaches in his AI courses, real-world examples of how tech is improving transactions, and practical advice for real estate pros who want to embrace innovation without losing that human touch. We'll also dive into Jim's own journey from data analytics to the classroom to helping clients find their perfect home, and how he sees the role of real estate agents evolving in a tech-driven future. This is a conversation full of forward-thinking insights, grounded in the everyday experience of Columbus real estate. So let's get into it. Well, Jim, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. You're someone who I know well, but we haven't had this conversation in this format yet. And you're also someone who wears a lot of hats.
True.
You're a lecturer at OSU with regards to AI, prompt engineering and data mining, and you're a realtor with Styer Real Estate Professionals, but you're also someone who teaches yoga.
Yes.
So I am very interested to hear about your hat rack and how you put them on there. So I'd love for you to start wherever you think is most appropriate.
Sure. So I think for me, I spent 30 years in corporate America doing the typical 8 to 6, 8 to 7 sort of grind.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got into my later years, realized that I wanted to start thinking about things a little bit differently and made a career choice.
Mm-hmm.
Got to a point where I felt like I had enough sort of resources that I could land even if I wasn't successful.
Yeah.
And so the very first thing that I did along that way was, and it was already something I was doing, was yoga, which I absolutely love. And I became a teacher because I love sharing things that I'm passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
I've been an active investor for a number of years. So I have 3 units right now, 3 doors. I think that's what we say, right? 3 doors.
3 doors.
Fantastic. 3 doors. They're a key part of my retirement plan, and they're part of my what I would call freedom package,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. And as I was looking to transition out, I came and talked to you and said, what is it like to be a real estate agent? And, you were honest with me.
Mm-hmm.
You told me the good and the bad, the stories of what does it mean. But, I think the thing that rings true to me is that as an agent, I get to be there as part of their chapter.
Mm-hmm.
When you buy or sell a home, it's a turning of a page. It is leaving something that you've been there for a very long time and going to essentially a blank page in the book, and how much of an opportunity it is as an agent to be part of that. And then lastly, I've been dropping in doing individual lectures from time to time at OSU for years now as part of my data background. I'd come in and just give a day lecture. And they reached out to me and said, Jim, we've got this opening. Do you want to teach AI prompt engineering? I've always been a geek at heart. I love technology, and just decided I would jump in with both feet, and got the opportunity to do that. And then that's sort of taken on a life of its own. So
I would love to hear a little bit more about that. So when you're teaching to AI and you're teaching students, what are some of the core principles that you're teaching with regards to AI, business,
Sure.
and how they marry?
Sure. I think the most important thing to know about AI, particularly when you're using it as an individual, right, to do your job, is that you have to remember context matters. You are talking to, if you imagine you're talking to a doctor, right? You go to the doctor's office and you walk in and you go, I am sick. You say nothing else, right? The doctor might lift some arms. They're not really going to be able to help you. And so often what I see with people as they interact with AI, they don't really tell the story about what their goals are and how they need help from AI. So to me, the core principle that I try and drive in is tell a story, be descriptive, be prescriptive, tell AI everything you need. And then sometimes, if that is a problem, you reverse it. You say, maybe I'm starting a new business. I need a business plan. Ask me questions. Ask AI to ask you questions and let you just answer them.
Can you walk us through an example, maybe the first and the second, that you can think of where someone might use AI to solve a problem?
Sure. So I think common is email. But I think there are a whole bunch of opportunities beyond just like, how do I fix my email? In the business world, there's the capability of having AI do what's called deep research. And so if you're interested in, let's say, exploring your competition, right? So, John, you own a brokerage here in Columbus, Ohio, and you want to understand your competition as it relates to other startup brokerages in the area. You can go into AI and say, this is who I am. This is the number of real estate agents I have. This is my annual volume. I'd like you to search in a 200-mile radius from this point, identify any other brokerage that by volume matches this, and then do a marketing analysis of what they're doing to both recruit brokers and find business. Write that up as like 30-page document. Give me all the links and everything I need. 15 minutes later, boom, it's in your lap. And now you're like, I didn't know I could do that. But that's a that's a 5-minute exercise. Now, taking that and making it meaningful is where we humans get to work with AI. That's the next step. So if I put that in your lap and you sat on your shelf, you have you just have a medical book, but you don't have the degree. You're not doing anything with it.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. If I think about asking me questions, I'll reference my own example. As I was thinking about my real estate business, I knew I needed to have some degree of marketing, some degree of presentation. Like, who do I want to sell as myself to my clients?
Sure.
And how do I go about doing that? And I think most new agents, they don't know. And so I just went in and said, hey, I'm a new real estate agent. Here's where I am. I'd like to come up with a complete marketing background, a complete business operations plan. I'd like to identify colors. I'd like to go with the themes, taglines, key messaging, and then anything else you can think of. Now, in order to get here, we're going to need to explore my values. So I want you to ask me questions one by one. That's key. And I'll keep answering them. You ask until you have exhausted all the questions you can think of, and then bundle it all together. And then those questions become very key in helping you go, what colors do I like?
Right.
I don't know.
The important questions.
Yeah. What is it that I value, and how does that value translate to a potential client? I don't know. And it helps you. It will ask you different ways of sort of probing and saying, well, which is more important? Is it truthfulness, or is it, getting the deal done? Is it about economics, or is it about relationships? Like, it'll just sort of go through and tease these things out of you. And at the end, you'll have this business plan that is you, but it's like having this wonderful facilitator.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
So I know that's something that I think about often and wonder about is I feel like AI is moving so fast. And even just from almost a year and a half ago, 2 years to where we are now is like, I've seen it almost like 2-3 times change the way that it operates within my business and how I use it. So what does 5 years from now look like with regards to real estate and also just in general with AI?
Yeah. So I think in 5 years, truthfully, it's a little hard for me to predict.
Yeah.
My vision is more 3 years out because it feels more close. But I think at our current pace, that in 3 to 5 years, we will all have AI intertwined in our lives in ways that feel natural, but also like our iPhone. If I said you don't get the iPhone for the next week, oh, by the way, you've got to conduct business, I'm just going to give you a flip phone and a laptop, you would feel like, wait a minute, no.
You just chop my legs
It would
off.
feel unnatural.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think in relatively short time, in 3 to 5 years, you, John, are going to have a personal set of agents that you've crafted. You're going to have an agent that manages your calendar. You're going to have an agent that manages your finances. You're going to have an agent that then manages work, possible work relationships, CRM. Each one of these are going to be specific mini versions of you that you have instructed and taught over time around your preferences, your actions, and your behaviors. And then it will begin mimicking it. So for instance, if you like to have a meeting that's an hour long, but afterwards you always like to have a 30-minute sort of reset gap, your agent will know that. Maybe you have a travel agent that is agentic for you. And what happens is you go into that and you say, listen, I'd like to go to Maui. I want to go from this week to this week. Book the tickets. Travel agent thing already knows what kind of hotels you like to stay at, already knows restaurants you like to eat. It already knows the activities you and your wife like and the kids. It's fully booked all of those for you. It's given you a half dozen options. You've gone yes, no, no, yes, no, no, yes. It's booked those, given you a budget and said, is this budget okay? You say yes. Wonderful. The next thing that happens, and this is where it gets a little mind-blowing, is that agent talks to your calendar agent and tells your calendar agent, go block this. That agent then also talks to your finance agent and says, we have an upcoming spend of nearly $15,000 for a Hawaii vacation. Please start to budget $1,000 a month or some money amount in for that particular thing. And by the way, notify John what it's going to cut back on if necessary. If this is a budgeting thing and not an earnings thing, let John know that he can eat out 3 times this month instead of 4. That's the new budget target, and send him an email for that. In the meantime, it's alerted any clients that were in that time frame that they need to reschedule it. And so those meetings have automatically been rescheduled.
With their AI agent.
With their AI agent. That's right, John. We're not sending a little Excel Outlook thing where it says I'm available T :6 :
right.
That long list. That's gone. That's gone. And I think that's gone in 2 years. I could be wrong, but I think in 2 years, those sorts of things are gone. The notion of this will then be built into your cell phone. Your laptop will become increasingly less useful. The reason why is because the agents will be behind the scenes doing the things that we do every day.
Yeah.
So how do I think it happens? Your question? Okay. All right. Wasn't sure if you had a question.
No.
So I think that's what happens, is that this notion of agentics becomes everywhere. Something's in stock that you want at the supermarket, out of stock. All of these things are coordinating with what you like and reaching out into the real world. What does it look like for AI and real estate? I think it, like many businesses, dramatically changes it in the next 2 years to 3 years. And I think it changes it because you have an agent AI. You've gone to the
agent's agent.
You've got the agent's agent. That's right. Now, what happens with the law? Do they move fast enough to let that happen? But if you can imagine, I've got 10 clients. I assign an individual agent. They've hired me for my agent, the agent's agent. And I'm customizing it based off of what they like, what they need, their negotiating preferences. It's going to go ask them, what are your budget constraints? What are your must-haves, da-da-da-da-da. And every day it's going out and in a much more bespoke way that we can do today in MLS, going and pulling details that it sees from photographs. Maybe I want a first floor half bath immediately off the garage. That's not in MLS, but it's probably in the photograph. The agent The AI agent can go read that and make a note and go, yeah, this one has that. Maybe I'd like a large fenced backyard. Sometimes us agents, we're not so good about putting fenced backyard in. We try, but sometimes it gets missed. But in the photos, it's there. More and more content and information about the house starts moving into the photograph process and less about like what we actually type in.
Because the AI is going to be reading the photographs more than they'll be reading the description.
Correct. That is correct. So now this AI agent is just serving up information. Now the buyer goes, that's the one. Well, there's a button there. And they go, this is the one I want. I'd like to make an offer. Offer. Great. That comes to the offer agent. Now I, as the real estate agent, get notified. I have a buyer who is interested in a house. They want to make an offer on that house. Great. I now take my offer agent and I go have it talk to their selling agent, and they begin to negotiate. And they're going back and forth. And I'm supervising to make sure everything is okay, and I'm giving real life feedback about real experiences that happen in this ecosphere. But it's entirely possible that all of this negotiation is just a matter of button pushing that is going through agents. And at the end of the day, when we all align, we're good. Now you're still going to have a property inspected. Not a problem. But when all of that is being done, that inspector, part of why you might choose them, is because their agent integrates in with your real estate. And so as they're going through in real time and going photograph, 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 the agent is getting the photograph, sending it to mine, letting the buyer know, oh, by the way, I see these issues are coming through, and they're coming through real time. We're not waiting a day and a half for a review for the PDF to get emailed over. No, in real time. That buyer is being notified of maybe they say, I only want to know critical issues with the foundation. Not really interested about electrical, plumbing. We're planning on making this an investment flip property. Foundation only. Great. Maybe, on the other hand, they are really worried about plumbing or mold. And so as that person is taking images of the house and inspecting it, pops up, says mold. Do you want to cancel? Do you want to remediate? What do you want to do? I think I'd like to do this amount. Sends it back to the buyer's agent. I would look at it, say, here's how I think this might go. But the notion of what we do and how we do it and the processing of things through DOP loop and through MLS, I think there's big disruption coming. And these agents are a big part of what that looks like. It's all about driving convenience to the buyer. And today, it's the buying and selling process. It's not as convenient as it could be.
Right. No, and it is way more convenient than it was 20 years ago.
100%.
And it's going to be way more convenient in 20 years.
100%.
In 2 years.
And it's going to be interesting to see the dynamic of how those agents obey the laws. Right? Because you're like, well, I didn't say that to the buyer. The buyer asked if this is a family-friendly neighborhood. I, the real estate agent, didn't say that, but my AI agent went out, found out by surveying some information that it had access to that 70% of the neighborhood has got kids, and then gave that information to the client, which we're not allowed to do. So. How does that play into it? I don't know. This is going to be really interesting to see all of these things as they mature over time.
So how does a real estate agent today, not an AI agent, a real estate agent today prepare themselves for that future that is coming down the pipeline sooner than later?
I personally interweave AI into many of the things that I do. So you're talking about today? Today.
What are some things that you do with AI today within your business?
I don't do a remedy without AI. So when I get a remedy document from an inspection, the very first thing I do is I put it into AI. We all know that sometimes these remedy documents can be 80, 90, 100 pages. There's a lot of words.
The inspection report.
Yeah, the inspection report. And that there might not be, it's not accessible for my client. It is meant to legally document things, but it isn't something where my client sees something and goes, what does that mean there's a crack here, and is that a big deal? So the very first thing I do is I take it and I put it into AI, and then I have AI out of that create a summary of all high-level issues, medium-level issues, and low-level issues, and I organize it by topic: foundation, electrical, plumbing, exterior, interior, so that now I have a Word document that really is just like what is the issue? You know, there is an issue that you have a leak in the kitchen. Got it. And then it references, that little document will reference the page number in the bigger thing. And then I'll use that to say, okay, is this something that is a delay or an immediate? Like pre-close, post-close, but like post-close get money for, or we should fix this right now. And I take that and summarize it all into a Word document, and then I share it back with my client. And after, by the way, I've gone through and checked to make sure.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. That's the stage we're in AI right now. Trust but verify. I go through those highs and I make sure I'm not missing anything by topic. Same with the lows and the mediums. And then I give it back to them. But it's taken it and turned those words into something that makes it understandable for them. I still do my comparative market analysis. So if I'm buying or selling a home and I want to check to see where we should be on pricing, I still do my market analysis using some of the tools MLS and the Columbus Board of Realtors provides me. But I also go into AI. So I go and use that deep research item. And I'm able to get a little bit more specific, particularly when I say, I want you to go look at that house. By the way, that house has a screened-in porch and mine doesn't. So, given today's market, what does that cost today using markets that have been affected by the tariffs today? Now, that number is still a made-up number. Just to be clear, AI is not going out in there and giving me an estimate that's come from a general contractor.
Right.
But that number...
It's a best guess, which would be the same thing that an agent would give
100%.
you.
And so I still look at it and go, yeah, that feels like a reasonable, practiced number. And so I like the mix. So I start with MLS, and then I will switch into AI. AI, though, will do a full-blown on the sales side. It'll do a full-blown executive summary. It will talk about your house. It will talk about your neighborhood. It will talk about what's going on in your neighborhood and put it together in this like beautiful written Word document.
Yeah.
And then I go back and I edit it. So AI might pick 5 houses. Well, I think 2 of those are not a great match for whatever reason. And I'll pull that out of the content.
There's still an art to the science.
There is still an art to the science. There are still, houses where I look at it and go, well, on paper it looks like it should be a comp, but it's sold for a ridiculously low price. And there has to be something there that I just don't know about because it just doesn't make sense. So AI looks at it and goes, it's a comp. It's in the neighborhood.
Right.
I look at it and go, call the buyer and go, 3 houses down. Any idea why that sold for what it is? Is there something wrong with it? Is there any history of something going wrong in the house? No, I have no idea. May have just been a family member selling to a family member. And so they're just selling it at a flat cost coming across. I kick it. AI it won't know that yet. And then I'm able to take that and present a very nice, probably 3 to 4 page document. And AI will help me come up with marketing approaches. And it will say, here's what I'm going to do 7 days out from listing, 0 to 7 days out from listing. Here's what I'm doing on the day that's listing. Here's what I'm doing 0 to 7 days out. And it creates this whole sort of marketing plan, bespoke for the house, based on what the buyers have told me they want. And then I'll go back and I'll edit it. Am I going to stage it for them? Well, I'm going to pull that out. Am I going to do drone shots? Yes. Well, I didn't know that, or maybe I didn't put that in. And then I take all that and bundle it. I think that there's even more that I have just not. I've been thinking a lot about the getting of clients. I think my emails to clients are just still not right. And I'm exploring ways to have AI help me.
In your lead gen?
Yeah, exactly. Be my lead gen. Honestly, I was working on a deal recently, and we were having some tough negotiations where just the things weren't going right? And I was trying to seek an understanding of what the seller might be thinking about and how we might be able to have just a better relationship with the seller. And I went to AI and I said, here's the deal and here's what happened and here's what I've considered. And AI gave me 3 or 4 recommendations. Now, I'm going to be clear. None of them were like, oh my God. But it still gave me some perspective of
Got your brain thinking a little bit.
Got me thinking. And half of this right now in AI is just sparking the brain to just see a perspective different than our own.
I didn't think of that.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, there's so much happening around AI. It can be almost a little overwhelming because I feel like there's so much and it's moving so quickly. What is 1 or 2 things that someone who doesn't have experience with AI but is interested in getting started can latch on to where, okay, this is something I can start here, and maybe with relation to real estate?
Yeah. I would say with real estate, the simplest and easy thing is inspection. I think inspection is a wonderful place to start. It gives you a real sense of you can upload this and then it's an 80-page document. How old is a hot water heater? I don't know. How old is a hot water heater? 2016. Great. Like I can offload my mind from those facts and figures. I do not need to go through a 60-page document to find it. The buyers can ask me anything about the house, and if it was documented inspection, I can just go to my little agent that I made in AI where I uploaded the information and just ask the question. I want to move that to a point where I can then turn it and expose it to my buyers. I'm not there yet, but in my perfect world, once that inspection report gets up there, I can say, by the way, this is your inspection, your personal AI inspection.
You have a portal to the house you're buying.
Going back to the individual, I think uploading it is a great thing. I think the second thing is to start just using it. When you start to do anything in AI, starting in your real estate business, whether it's like comparative market analysis, taking a photograph of something in a house that maybe is a unique feature, and it's maybe like something's damaged with it, and you're like, I don't know how much that would cost. Take a photograph of it, upload it into AI, and say, how much roughly? I live in Columbus, Ohio. How much might it cost to replace something that looks like this?
I recently experienced something like that in that I had a bulb go out in my house, and it was not a common bulb type, and I had no idea. What do I do? And how do you search what bulb is this on Google?
That's correct.
It's hard.
It is.
But
yes.
I opened up AI, I opened up the camera, I pointed it at it, and I said, what kind of bulb is this? And it said, oh, that's a blah, 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 blah. Easy. And then
Totally.
Just because I don't know it doesn't mean it's not actually like a very purchasable bulb, but I'm not a light bulb expert, believe it or not. And so something like that where it just made life so much easier.
Totally.
Because I could have taken that bulb to the hardware store and walked around with it, comparing it or trying to find someone to help me. But instead, it was done, ordered on Amazon. I'm on, that task has been handled.
Absolutely.
Night and day difference. That was not something I could do 3 years ago.
You see insects in a house, worried that it might be termites. You see a big ant, typically can be carpenter ants, but not always. Take a photograph. What is this? Now, I'm going to say my spiel. You should always talk with professionals.
Yeah.
But if you want at least a first throw idea about what it might be, first pitch out there, take a photograph. I have just started experimenting with market analysis. It's going to take me longer to let go of doing it the way I've been taught, because I want to make sure the amount of work. You really have to go through everything it creates. You can't just take this 6-page report and go send it off the client.
No, yeah, it's not there yet.
It's not there yet.
But it is a starting point.
It is. But honestly, it highlighted some things that I hadn't thought about in the market. And frankly, its executive summary about the property and about the neighborhood was like, oh, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't have to write it. It was just like, boom, that's done. Then as I think about other things from a marketing perspective, It's great if you have websites and ask it to analyze your website. It's great for thinking about silly things like what is your color, and helping think about the motivations of your buyers and sellers and helping them process this sort of chapter change in their life.
Perfect. If you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I believe in building real estate businesses that are scalable and sustainable. And that's exactly what we help agents create at Styer Real Estate Professionals. If you're an agent who's ready to grow and tired of spinning your wheels, then consider this. Growth is change. At Styer Rep, we coach to your strengths, match tools to your style, and help you scale your business without burning out. And there's no fluff, there's no hang your license culture, just serious growth, real systems, and 100% commission when you cap. So head to styrrep.com/join us to start the conversation, because it's time to go from where you are to where you belong. So let's talk a little bit more about you, Jim, as a person and your career, because it's been an interesting one. What was something that inspired you, and I know we briefly hit on this, to move out of the corporate world, data analysis and all that, and get into real estate and get it also into education?
Yeah, I know it might seem weird, but the three of them are so, actually in my mind, so tightly interwoven. And from a career perspective, I was just feeling in my career like I was stuck, like I was working really, really, really hard. And I had had a fair amount of success in my career, had managed some pretty large teams, worked for some pretty big companies, but I just felt like I was just in the grind, and I wasn't going to be in a place in which I could really, I don't know, I just didn't, it didn't fill me up, it didn't excite me, it didn't get me motivated, and truthfully, the challenges were starting to really repeat themselves in like very predictable ways. Yeah. The problems I was encountering at work, I had encountered before, except they were, it was getting a little old solving them. So that's when I decided it was best for me to move away. My wife and I talked about retirement, but she and I are both like type A personalities. So I had actually started teaching at Columbus State, which I still do. I started teaching there 2 years ago. Really, really enjoyed it. Still enjoy it. When AI sort of became publicly known, I jumped on the bandwagon and just started playing with it and learning. And there's tons of free content out there teaching myself. And then if I think back to like my past, I don't know if you know this, but I used to practice martial arts. So in that, I got to relatively high ranks, and I spent a lot of time teaching. And I loved that moment when you break board. I'm going to tie this together, I promise. But there's this spark of thinking, I can't do something. And there's this fear that happens, and then it breaks. And there's just this like life sparkles in front of you. It's like this sparkle moment. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Where we've been somewhere, you're on vacation, and you just get this moment of like, and you're like, and every time someone faced that challenge, I could see the spark, and I loved being part of that. So when I moved away from martial arts and I got into yoga, I was halfway through a push-up, and I looked at my wife and said, I could teach this. And she said, you could and you should. And then I began my journey. And as I went through that journey, I'm been teaching now for 2 years. There was so much I learned about myself and about like, what does it mean to be authentic? And how do I take this persona of me, which, in the corporate world, not totally welcomed. I like to joke around. I like to be jovial. I understand when there are serious moments, but I like levity in my life. And it took me a long time to switch from the voices of yoga that I was taught to like mine, and then get a group of people who were like, oh yeah, I like Jim.
I'm buying what you're selling.
I'm buying what you're selling. And now I'm very fortunate. I have a really solid group of clients who come to me 3 days a week and, be goofy with me, but also spend time just like me working on themselves. So I was doing that. And along the way, I talked to you about this chapter moment of real estate. And I was really interested, given the success that I had enjoyed with the properties I had purchased and rented, and knowing that I was providing a service. In my mind, it was a win-win. There are the people living in my properties need a place to live. I want to make it affordable. I always look at my properties through the lens of like, if I had to move in tomorrow, would I move in? And would I feel good about that? Would I be proud to live here? Proud is the level I want. Mm-hmm. That's the I'd be proud to live in this house. And I found great property management companies like your company. I've got another one that I work with down south that do a really good job about caring about their clients. Mm-hmm. So I wanted more of that. I wanted to learn more about it, and I wanted to be part of this whole process. And then, I was very fortunate and found my first client, and that was a sparkly, that was a sparkly client. So, and the AI thing was just fortuitous that I had, OSU knew I was already teaching at another local college. They had experience where I would come into classes, and I like to joke around with my students. I'm not a take it too serious. If you come to my 2-day lecture, I have a 2-day lecture coming up in July through OSU, you will see a bag of Hershey's Nuggets that will be open at the front. And I leave it there. I don't explain it. And then once class starts, I tell people I want you to ask me questions. Now, along the way, because we're talking about AI and it changes so rapidly, almost always, in fact, I've never experienced this where someone doesn't ask me a question where I go, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
And those are nugget questions. And so anytime a student asks me a question, I go, Hershey's chocolate, pick it up. And I'll slowly start to walk over to the student. Gives me time to think about my answer, process what I want to say. But it also rewards them for being curious. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why some of my students like me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not, this is bi-directional. We're learning together.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah. I've been a little farther down the road. I know a little bit more than you. But I haven't taught a class yet about AI that I did not learn something. Mm-hmm. I had something just this last time where it was one of those things that makes sense. But when you ask AI something and you use the number 4 or you spell it out, same question, just change the format, number versus text. It will give you a different answer.
Interesting.
And I went, well, it does make sense though, because 4 is mathematical and sort of numbers are math focused. Mm-hmm. Accuracy focused, and the number 4 is typically a descriptor of a count.
Yeah.
And so once I thought about it, I'm like, it makes complete sense. So, but I get to see that sparkle. I get to explain to people what you can do with AI, and you can see them go, wait a minute, they're kicking the board. Mm-hmm. Do you know?
Totally.
They go from fear to
excitement.
And it's the same thing when we go and see a house. And the client goes from I'm not sure it's the right house. Maybe it's the right house. I'm not sure I can afford it. I get them the right financial person. Maybe it's the right house. I think I'm going to make an offer. I make an offer. And they go through each one of, the home buying process. They're little mini board kicks. Mm-hmm. And I remember my client recently along each phase was just super excited. Please we're not done. You've got about 10 more boards you got to kick.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know, because at the very last one, they were like, this is it. This is the one I can get really excited about. I go, we're home free. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have the walkthrough. I'm confident the walkthrough is going to be great. But I got to be part of that. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of how, to me, they're all, I think the outside the world, they feel really different. But to me, they're so similar in a way.
Well, I'm hearing how they're similar to you and how you experience them. One thing that I've picked up in this conversation and in just knowing you is a theme in your life is learning. And whether that's learning about AI, whether that's learning how to be a yoga instructor, whether that's learning how to be a great real estate agent, whether that's teaching and helping others learn. How do you keep up with AI, and what does your day-to-day learning look like so that you can stay on top of it and be prepared for the daily changes that are happening?
So for me, I have a number of newsletters I subscribe to, and they come every single day to my email. And I make it a priority every day, and I read through those. Now, it's not to say I read every single article, but I'm looking for specific things in there that help me understand, is there a new DeepSeek that has been released? And there has been. People don't know about it yet, but there has been. And so I went and I looked at it, and I played with it, and I bookmarked it, and I went, okay, that's one to watch. And so that's part A. Part B is I integrate it as much as I can into the real world things I do, which I think helps me when it comes to teaching, because it makes it more relatable. I'm not just telling you, I'm doing it. And then lastly, my Instagram feed has been tuned to my interests.
Yeah.
And so like half of it is a person in a yoga pose, and the other half is like, 30 things you didn't know you could do with AI. And I don't know what it's going to show me next.
Just wait till they're just in the same video.
Yeah, maybe. There's
a lot of changes happening.
I use AI for yoga all the time. I'll talk about sequences, and I'll go, does this make sense? How might this feel in the body? Is there a different way to transition from this pose to this pose? And AI I actually put in a sequence that I got a lot of really positive feedback on, but there was one part I didn't really like. I didn't like it. I think the students, they would have never noticed it.
Yeah.
But as I was watching people move and watching the body shift, I could see this general
awkwardness.
There were many people who were a little janky getting into the next pose. So I threw the whole thing in and said, this part here. And AI was like, yeah, here's what you should do instead. And I went, I like it. Okay. Update the sequence, write the sequence down, save it. So I use it. That's how I stay in it. I use it.
Yeah, you use it.
Yeah.
What is something that, if you're a real estate agent and you see this coming, how do you set yourself up for success in the next 1, 2, 3 years so that when AI comes and it disrupts, just like it's going to disrupt a lot of industries, that you are riding that wave at the top?
Yeah. So I think like anything, change starts at the top. So part of why I like working with you, John, is I know you're using AI. I know that it's part of how you think every day. Every day. Whether it is, how am I thinking about my podcast? How am I strategizing the growth of my business? It's already a part of who you are and how you're working. If you're in a smaller brokerage and there is no AI to be seen, you might be okay now. But I would say if it's not coming up in the next 6 months, you're going to start to see disruptions. I still think it's that fast. We're already seeing... There's this thing called Claude by Anthropic, who just had a brand new release. That AI can run on a problem and work on a problem for 7 straight hours.
Wow.
No need for anyone. And then it will come back and go, here's what you should do.
Yeah.
Think about that in the world of real estate now. So I think it starts at the top, John. I also think it also starts with what tools do you have? So fortunately, some of the tools I know we have here I'm starting to see AI come into those functions.
Yes.
Right? So I'm not going to say what tools we have, but you know what they are, and I know that they're coming in, and AI is part of that package.
I just started noticing that recently as well. It's like, oh, good.
Yeah.
And it just makes life easier.
It does. And that is how we should look at the lens of AI. And then lastly, I think there is a significant amount of both paid, you can come see my class, and free information depending on your learning style that is out there on the internet. Google has a lot of things. ChatGPT has a lot of things. There is an abundance of information out there. Start educating yourself. And again, I'm going to use that breaking the board analogy. Are you afraid to kick the board that is AI because you're just not sure what's going to happen? Or are you willing to take a breath, scream out loud, and then just kick it and see what happens? What I see happen when I teach people AI is they have fear. I saw it when I brought it to the brokerage here where people, one person, but she had already sort of broken through on her own, where they're like, I don't trust it. And that's that once you break through it, then it becomes something where you're like, you start thinking about it all the time. So I think starts at the top. Look at your brokerage. Make sure that they're invested. Make sure their leaders are invested. Make sure their tools are either moving towards AI or already AI-centric, and then bring yourself there and continue to learn.
What's one action item I can take tomorrow to move the meter a little bit towards being prepared for AI?
I think it starts with find one way in your business, one way, one place, doesn't matter how big or small it is, and try using AI to do that piece for you. And when it fails, and I say it with that kind of certainty, when it fails, try again in a different way. And eventually you will find you'll start to see those little sparkles of success.
Perfect. Just give it a shot.
Well, not only give it a shot, but give it a second, third, and fourth shot. That's what I see is happening right now with AI is people go, I logged into that gym. I asked it something. Give me a stupid answer. Did you go to the doctor and say you weren't feeling well and nothing else?
Right.
Then you're going to get a bad diagnosis. Or did you go in and did you really tell a good story? Did you say, here's what all my blood work says. Here's how I'm feeling. Here's when I'm feeling. And here's what I'm eating. Here are my past issues. And then does the doctor go,
Then the doctor goes to their AI agent and they diagnose what the issue is.
Listen, I mean, it's already, I just went to a doctor the other day and it was fully transcribing all of his notes for him at the end of it so that he's no longer writing down pencil.
All my conversations are summarized for me at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I take recordings when I'm meeting with an AI client for the first time, external from OSU, and I record that so that I can understand, like, how did I sound? How did I come across? What things did they want or their concerns that I hadn't even crossed my mind? And I'm able to take that recording, dump it into AI and go, give me a summary. What do they value? What do they need? What might they object to? Want to write up a legal document? Always consult an attorney. But you absolutely can create some legal documentation. Always consult an attorney. That at least can get you a little bit down the way to go like, oh, this is how it could look. Yeah.
Well, I know that we could sit here and talk all day about AI, and I probably could do it too.
Or real estate. Pick
My
your passion.
editor charges me by the minute.
Oh, goodness.
So let's do this. Let's tell the audience, where can they find you if they want to learn more about AI or use your services as an AI agent?
Yeah. You can reach out to me. I'm at jamescperry@outlook.com. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn/in/just Jim Perry. Got one of those funny names, Jim James. Yeah. James C. Perry at outlook.com. You can find me there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being
my pleasure, John.
Being here.
Thanks.
It was awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you. And I look forward to continuing to learn from you about AI and implementing that into my daily life and to my business. So
Excellent.
Thank you again.
Amazing. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of Columbus Brick by Brick. A big thank you to Jim Perry for sharing his unique perspective at the intersection of AI, education, and real estate. From his principles on ethical and effective AI adaptation to his hands-on experience in the Columbus housing market, Jim gave us a clear look at how technology and local expertise can work hand in hand. We talked about the future of real estate, but we also reflected on the importance of adaptability, continuous learning, and staying human in a high-tech world. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a comment. We love hearing from our listeners, so we look forward to that. And be sure to share this episode with a colleague, client, or friend who's curious about the future of real estate. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Columbus Brick by Brick, and visit us online at columbusbrickbybrick.com. So until next time, remember, every brick has a story, and we're here to tell it. We'll see you next time.